3, 2, 1, blast off. SpaceX is all set to launch the world's most powerful rocket into deep space, and with it, a most unusual cargo: Elon Musk's own car. The Falcon Heavy rocket features 3 Falcon 9 engine cores that are powered by 27 Merlin engines. Instead of concrete or steel blocks that act as mass simulators, the rocket's payload will be a red Tesla Roadster. The Falcon Heavy is designed to get large payloads into space and opens up the possibility of sending manned missions to the Moon or Mars. The powerful vehicle has 2,500 tons of thrust on liftoff, equal to 18 Boeing 747s at full throttle. Its maiden flight is scheduled for late January. A lot of risk is associated with the rocket, which could blow up on ascent. If successful, the Tesla Roadster will be sent into Mars orbit, where it will remain for 1 billion years. On top of this, SpaceX is also aiming to land and recover all 3 of the Heavy's first-stage cores. Meanwhile, on Monday, the Dow Jones reported that lawmakers have been informed about the apparent destruction of a secretive payload, codenamed Zuma, after being taken into space on a recent SpaceX launch. The payload reportedly may have burned up in the atmosphere after failing to separate correctly from the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. Off to space we go.
Astronauts might one day hibernate their way to Mars. Getting to Mars from Earth takes a long time, as long as 200 days. A group of scientists funded by NASA think astronauts could pass most of that time by hibernating in a sleep chamber, much like what you see here. Each chamber is outfitted with tubes that lower the body's temperature as well as provide nutrition. An intranasal cooling system would lower the astronaut's temperature by 5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which significantly reduces metabolism. The astronaut is fed via catheters attached to the thigh or chest, while another tube carries waste away. This result is what's called a torpor-induced state, using therapeutic hypothermia. One concern is muscle atrophy due to lack of use. Scientists think they can address this through neuromuscular electrical stimulation. As the astronauts approach Mars, the wake-up cycle begins. Warming pads slowly raise the body's temperature. It takes roughly 1 hour for every 1 degree rise in body temperature. Fully awake after their long nap, the astronauts are ready to begin their Mars mission. NASA might start sending people back into space sooner than expected. NASA seems to be taking a cue from Trump, taking a bolder, riskier approach after the president made it apparent he wanted the U.S. to retain its dominance in space. Since the end of the space shuttle program, NASA has relied on Russia to send its astronauts into space. The agency's acting administrator announced Wednesday that it's thinking of sending astronauts on a space mission earlier than planned, possibly within Trump's first term in office. NASA's Space Launch System rocket was originally slated to go on its first exploration mission in 2018 with an unmanned space capsule. This timeline calls for the SLS to be launched from the Kennedy Space Center on September 30th, carrying the Orion space capsule into space in a mission known as EM-1. The capsule would orbit the Moon for about 3 weeks before returning to Earth, splashing down into the ocean with the help of parachutes. A second crewed mission was scheduled for 2021, but with new plans considering the addition of a crew to EM-1, it seems astronauts could be going on the Orion as early as 2019. For that, NASA needs an SLS rocket with a more powerful second stage, known as the Exploration Upper Stage, or EUS. But though the design for EUS has been approved, it has yet to be built. Another hurdle the agency needs to overcome is human rating the Orion space capsule, which at the moment is still missing key life support systems. NASA may be enthusiastic about its latest move, but it's unclear how NASA will meet program schedules, especially given its limited budget.
SpaceX rocket sending first inflatable habitat to space. It sounds like a sci-fi dream, but the International Space Station crew is getting their first attachable, expandable room when an unmanned SpaceX spacecraft takes off on Friday. When SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket launches from Florida on April 8th, it'll be sending the Dragon cargo capsule to the International Space Station with 7,000 pounds of supplies. A prototype expandable space habitat called the Bigelow Expandable Activity Module, or BEAM, will be included in the cargo. Air stored inside the BEAM will inflate the habitat to up to 13 feet long and a diameter of 10 feet. The beam will be attached to one of the docking ports on the International Space Station for 2 years. Crew members won't be living in the prototype yet. Instead, they will be running tests on its structural durability, as well as its ability to withstand variations in pressure, temperature, and radiation. Made out of Kevlar-type material, the beam offers protection from outside space debris, such as small, asteroid-like objects. Inflatable habitats could be essential to future missions to deep space. On these long journeys, crew members will need more space to store supplies as well as conduct research. If the upcoming beam experiments prove successful, the prototype will lay the groundwork for future space habitats.
China to launch new space lab this year. China plans to launch its second space laboratory into outer space this year, which is part of its strategy to create a manned space station that is expected to be in service around 2022. China's second space laboratory, Tiangong 2, will be attached to 2 separate labs. Two astronauts will be sent to the space station by Shenzhou 11 spacecraft. Their mission is expected to last for 30 days, doubling the longest period Chinese astronauts have previously spent in space. China will launch the country's first cargo spaceship, Tianzhou 1, which aims to supply propellants for Tiangong 2 and food and drinks for the astronaut. Apart from conducting science experiments, the main mission for the space station is to practice key technologies such as on-orbit propellant resupply, which is essential in order to ensure the permanent operation of the space station. China's first space laboratory, Tiangong 1, was launched in 2011 and has been in good working condition ever since.
Private companies drive new space race at NASA. NASA says it soon may be able to launch astronauts from U.S. soil to the International Space Station. Important project milestones are coming up for NASA's 2 commercial crew partners, Boeing and SpaceX, with several flight tests, including manned missions slated for 2018. Boeing is working on the CST-100 Starliner. The spacecraft can seat up to 7 and is meant to send astronauts to the space station. 3 Starliners are currently in production, with 1 set to carry astronauts next year. The pressurized vessel can be reused 10 times. SpaceX, which has flown cargo missions to the ISS with its Dragon spacecraft, plans to use the Dragon 2 to send astronauts to space. The Dragon 2 is the latest version of SpaceX's capsule model. It's designed to seat 7 astronauts. Boeing and SpaceX must show that both of their systems are ready to start regular flights to the space station in order to meet NASA's requirements. SpaceX has its first test flight set for February, while Boeing's launch is planned for June.